Shalom.
And hello.
My name is Kim Blackman, and this is our first episode of Master Chefs of St. George. We are going to have a show this semester of chefs sharing with you their most iconic ethnic dish.
I have to get my name in there too. My name is Judy Blackman, and Kim and I have been married for
53 years.
And we're still talking to each other.
But maybe not after this show.
Maybe not.
So we want you, when you finish watching each episode, we want you to be able to go home, have a dinner party, or not, and impress whoever you invite to your dinner party with not only a wonderful dinner or dessert, but also with a little history about what you're cooking.
One other thought is that this also makes a fantastic brunch dish. And you can prepare the ingredients beforehand and just make it that morning, pull it all together. So
because we're making a brunch dish. We're making a Jewish dish called blintzes. Blintzes is sort of, their origination is in Eastern Europe. We're going to look at that in just a minute and share some of the history of blintzes with you in just a minute. But first, we want to tell you a little bit about ourselves. We are both Jewish and grew up in a traditional Jewish home.
And both of our ancestors did come from Eastern Europe.
We met the first day of each of us being a teacher, a new teacher in a public school in the South Bronx. Actually, it's a very famous area of the South Bronx. It's called Fort Apache. Paul Newman made a movie called Fort Apache, the Bronx, and when Judy and I met, it was an insanely exciting place to teach. And so we met because Judy had just...
Right, the paychecks came in, I guess about a month after we started, and mine didn't come in for some reason. And I had an apartment, I lived in the city with a roommate, and I needed my check. So I went into the stairwell because it was different level schools, and I started crying, of course. And Kim found me, and
I offered to pay your rent.
You offered to take me out to dinner.
Oh gosh, that was pretty cheap of me. So that's how we met. That was the very beginning of our relationship. My background, by the way, is from a restaurant family. And so that's why I have developed this interest in food, because my aunt and uncle, who I lived with part of the year off and on for years, and I worked in restaurants for years, and we had a chain of restaurants that served at times 45,000 New Yorkers a week, full sit-down meals. This wasn't fast food. This was a complete breakfast, lunch, or dinner. One of the restaurants had 700 seats.
They started out with deli-like restaurants called Cookies, but they were very large, and they had great cheesecake. And then they branched out to steak pubs, and where they served,
the classic thing was a steak, and you could go to the salad bar, and you could go to the potato bar, and make your own potato, and then for dessert, it was make your own hot fudge sundae. And they were reasonably priced and hugely successful. And indeed, Judy and I got married in a steak pub on Long Island. Long Island. You get the accent? So that's our background. Judy, of course, grew up not in the restaurant business, but with a very traditional cooking mom, and she learned how to cook from her and has been cooking ever since. Not every night, I must say, but ever since. So we're going to start showing you how to actually make a blintz. So blintzes, as we mentioned, come from Eastern European Jewish culture, Poland, Ukraine, and Russia. They probably originated in Russia under the name Bellini, but then Jews sort of took them, and instead of having, the difference between a crepe and a blintz is that a blintz is cooked twice.
And sometimes 3 times, because it also can be baked after it's fried.
And what I think everybody loves about a blintz is that it can be savory or sweet. You can fill it with the cheese that we're going to show you,
which is the most traditional.
Yeah.
Or you can use various fruits, potato, like mashed potatoes, and also chocolate, like Nutella.
Right, and you can custom make it for your family. I think you'll find out that whoever you serve it to will be surprised how delicious it is, and also it looks more complicated than it is. There's a few tricks we hope to show you that'll make it easy for you to do, to control the dough, because the dough has to be firm but stretchy and delicate. It can't fall apart because we're going to fold it over. That's the other difference with blintz, is we fold it over more than once.
And you want it to be thin. You don't want a thick dessert. You want it thin.
So hopefully you'll be seeing on your screen now, Lower East Side. The blintzes came over with immigrants in the early 1900s. They had a miserable, miserable life living in tenements, sometimes 2 or 3 families in one room, and a bathroom down the hall, and meals and food were the great escape. It wasn't expensive. Nobody was going on vacation. Nobody was going out to dinner too much, maybe not at all, but they could all come home and keep the family together through meals. And I think you'll find this is pretty true among most ethnic cultures. Italians, Jews, Mexicans, Indians, food
Asians
becomes foremost. I went out to dinner with my family and with my aunt and uncle pretty regularly to all sorts of restaurants, and we could talk food until we were blue in the face, and very frequently we were. People who didn't grow up in that kind of culture don't typically or often get the depth of conversation that can revolve around a meal. So anyway, blintzes are still today popular, very popular. In fact, I looked up and saw that there are several Disney restaurants that people write about because they love the blintzes when they go to Disney World. There's like 4 or 5 restaurants in Disney World that serve blintzes in different forms, and it's apparently a very popular treat even today, and even in a place like Disney World. So you can also buy them, by the way, frozen. I have a picture up here. The golden blintzes are perhaps the most well-known, and they really are quite delicious, not as delicious as you're going to make, but not far behind.
I haven't been able to find them in Utah, but in LA, New York, any place where there's a congregation of Jewish people, golden blintzes are commonly found in any supermarket.
I'm sure you can get them on Amazon. And I wouldn't be surprised, I know Harmon's does not have them, but I wouldn't be surprised if Albertsons carries them. We didn't get to check that. But so
Actually,
you can buy them frozen.
The only place I found them that has them is Walmart, but you have to buy a case.
That's okay, you'll go through a case like that. Okay, so let's get started and make our first blintz. Judy?
Okay, today I'm going to make the filling. And here I measured out 11 ounces of ricotta cheese. Traditionally, they used farmer cheese, but that is drier and grittier. And so today we like to use ricotta cheese.
Just let me interrupt to say that farmer cheese, which many people have never heard of, is also a traditional New York kind of cheese or European cheese, where it's basically like cottage cheese, but the liquid has been squeezed out.
Much drier. I remember my mother used to eat it, so I remember it.
And I always hated it.
I hated it too.
So we're happy to make it with ricotta.
Ricotta is much richer. And next, 2 tablespoons of cream cheese. We use regular cream cheese. Some people can use mascarpone, which is an Italian cream cheese that's very rich. It's richer, so it's even more calories. This is the salt, half a teaspoon of salt, and a half a teaspoon of vanilla. Get all that vanilla out there. And then I'm just going to mix it together. And you'd be surprised how easily it comes together.
So you don't have to put it in the blender then, right? Or the
No,
mix?
that's why it's such an easy recipe. You can just do it in a couple of bowls,
But
which I like. I don't want to have to take out the big blender or the mixer or the food processor. Just all you need is a whisk. Okay. Now I'm going to give it over to Kim, who's going to make the sauce. We're going to put a berry sauce on top to kind of gild the lily.
That's all there is to it, to make the filling. Easy, done. And you can make this in advance, can't you?
Yes, you can make it 2 days in advance.
Okay, so now we're going to make a sauce to go over our blintzes. You don't need to have a sauce. Traditionally, there isn't one actually, and you could just put some powdered sugar on it to make it look finished, but we found that a sauce, we just love it. So, and what we're going to do to make this sauce is start off with 3 cups of frozen berries. Frozen berries seem to work better than fresh, and you can
They dissolve better into the sauce.
You can get these at Costco, and they're a mix of 3 berries. We find that this comes out just terrific, so we're happy to use it.
It's also great with just raspberries. Raspberry sauce is also delicious. This has raspberries and blueberries and blackberries.
So we're going to put this into a saucepan, and we're going to put it on medium heat, like so. And we're going to add now 2 cups of sugar and 2½ teaspoons of
cornstarch.
Yep, of cornstarch. And we need I didn't get this. Could you help me out and grab a ½ cup of water?
Sure.
And also, you know, salt in sweet and savory things. Salt is always helpful to bring out the flavor. So we're going to add just a 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. And lastly, to give it a little tang and a little complexity, we're going to put in half a lemon. Let me cut this in half.
Here's your ½ cup of water.
Thank you. Just pour it right in there. And we just love this tool to squeeze lemon juice out. It really works well, especially I recommend that you cut off the bottom a little bit, and then you just drop it in here. It's going to sit well if you take out the bottom, and then you can squeeze out the juice. You actually can squeeze it right in here. You can't squeeze it in something small because it gets a little messy, but it works really well. Also, this is a rice scoop, a rice cooker scoop. I find that really great for mixing the ingredients of your sauce. It doesn't break apart the berries too quickly, and it does a good job of mixing. It won't damage the bottom of your saucepan.
What flame do you use for this?
Medium heat, and we're going to cook this for about 20 minutes. And while that's cooking and thickening, we're going to take a break and hear a word from one of our sponsors.
If you don't find it in your game, you'll definitely find it in your surroundings. The land of distinction is calling. Rise to it.
Okay, folks, we're back. And now I'm going to show you how to make the batter for the blintzes. Here we have 4 whole eggs. One of them isn't, 2 of them aren't whole yet, but they will be broken up soon anyway. And 3 cups of whole milk. And I'm going to mix those together. And here I'm going to mix it really well because I don't want any yellow streaks in the batter. So I've got to make sure all these eggs are well combined.
Well, we've made this recipe, various recipes and different ways. You can make this, you don't have to use whole milk.
Right, that's
Comes
true.
out better with
We've
whole
been
milk.
using oat milk, but
Yeah.
today we're using whole milk.
We've done oat milk, we've done low-fat milk, and
Right,
it
that's
seems
true.
to come out pretty well in any fashion.
Okay, I don't see any more yellow streaks, so we're ready to add the flour. Now we only add the flour 1/2 at a time because otherwise it would be very difficult for it all to be absorbed into liquid at once. So we'll add about 1/2 of it and we'll blend that together. And when that's all combined, we're going to add a few more things and then we'll add the rest of the flour. So that's looking pretty good. I like to wipe down the sides, make sure everything's getting in there.
This dough, even after you add all the flour, is going to be pretty thin, isn't it?
We hope so because you want thin pancakes. This is some sugar. We have 2 teaspoons of sugar, not too much, 1/4 teaspoon of salt for seasoning, and 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. That's actually one of our additions. We decided to add the vanilla. We also have butter, melted butter, which is not so melted anymore, but okay, we'll work with that. And we're going to mix that all together before we add the rest of the flour.
So in other words, you don't even add the balance of the flour right away. You get all the ingredients mixed up in stages and then add the flour.
Right. It's looking good, so I'm going to add the rest of the flour right now. And we'll have all our ingredients ready for
I'm
the
gonna check on
batter
our
as soon as I mix it up.
Sauce. You know, a compote, this is a sauce we're making, not a compote. Compote's a little thicker. You can certainly make a compote, but the sauce just flows easier when you're putting it on pancakes or on blintzes.
You want to try to get out as many of the lumps, if there are any, as you can. And it's looking very thin.
It's hard to believe that that's a batter even.
Why do you say that?
Because it's so thin
Yeah.
and liquidy.
You never know.
But I know how it's going to come out, and that's
Oh,
great.
I have a little.
So what
Okay.
temperature do you like this on?
It should be at medium, and I had some butter. Did I put the wrong butter in there? I had melted some butter. Maybe I left it in the microwave. Let's see. I did. And it overspilled. Okay, we're going to use some butter, but we'll brush on the frying pan. And
Tell them about the frying pan, Judy.
yeah, you need to use a non-stick frying pan for this. There's no options here. You have to use a non-stick, and you have to test it to see if it's warm enough. So can you get me a teaspoon measurement, please?
Sure.
I doubt it's
Go
hot
ahead, you
enough
can
yet.
use this.
You have it on medium?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to take about a teaspoon. Actually, it's looking a little lumpy. Let me give it a little more mix. We want to test that the pan is hot enough, so we're going to do a little test cooking. Never mind. Cooking is what it is, right? So we're going to put a little in there, and we're going to count to 20, and if it gets brown, then we know it's hot enough. You counting?
Oh, sure. 15, 14,
Excuse
13,
me.
12, 11, 10,
And my spatula.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, it's getting bubbles. That's a good sign. Let's flip it over and see if it's brown. Doesn't want to flip. There it goes. Nope, not quite hot enough. It's still too white. We want it to be a little browned.
And also,
rid of
we
that one.
definitely want the top of each blintz, when it's cooked for the first time, we want the top to be cooked because we're going to stack them up and we don't want them to stick to each other. And so we're not worried about cooking them thoroughly, but we do need them to be cooked enough so there's no liquid on top. We're ready to go. You want to try
I
another
need
one?
my 3rd cup measurement to pour them out. And then I'll try this again. Too lumpy though. See if I can get some more of these lumps. I don't know what we did differently today.
I think you can use this maybe.
I had a pink cup in there,
Oh, okay. I'll look for it.
measuring cup. Oh, that's looking
Yeah,
better.
I got it. hiding off
Sorry,
camera.
first time.
Maybe.
So I think I'll put some more butter
Okay.
here because it looks pretty hot now. Okay, we're using 1/3 of a cup, and I found a little bit less than 1/3 of a cup is what I use. So I will take a little bit out, and then you want to squish it around the pan. You want it to go all around, kind of like that. And then we're going to wait for it to warm up.
So we're going to check 2 ways. We're going to check one, we're going to sneakily take a look at the bottom and see that it's browning. And secondly, we're going to look at the top and make sure that it doesn't look like it's liquid.
It looks set.
Yeah, totally.
When the edges are on the edge, when the edges start to pull away from the pan and turn a little bit browner, you know it's probably just about ready. I'm going to check, and not yet. Takes about 2 minutes.
And each stove, of course, is different. We have at home, we have
We have an induction stove.
right, so this is novel here, and it may take a few minutes longer than it might on our stove at home. But you can adjust the temperature as you make each one until you get it to be just exactly the way you want it.
Gas stoves are better for cooking. If you're a serious chef, you probably don't want an induction stove, but I love it because it's so easy to clean. Imagine not having to clean all these burners, and it's just wipe it off, and it's clean. Okay, I'm going to get the plate. I want to put this on over here, and I'm going to see it's looking browner. I think maybe we have to make it a little hotter. It's supposed to be medium, but this side is getting nice and brown. Let's try this side. Oh, it's good. It's good. So I've developed this technique where I can just slide it out of the pan. It took me quite a while to figure that technique out, but
And you
it's
see,
much
if you
easier
touch
than
it
having
on
to pick them
top,
up.
you'll know that it's firmed up and it's not still liquid.
And that's one reason I like to put a tiny bit of butter on each time to make sure that it's going to
Slide.
slide out.
And
again,
usually after the
a
first
less
1 or
than
2, they go faster. They cook faster
Again.
because the pan and everything is heated up.
And you see how that covers the whole pan?
You're a real pro at
And that's
that.
another technique we just developed, that if you pour the batter in the center and then move it around, it works better than if you just put it in any old place. It seems to, that was his invention, but it works really well.
Thank you for those credits.
You're welcome. Don't expect too many more of them.
I know, it's probably my month's worth right now, used up.
You got it. Okay, the waiting is the hard part, but it is getting brown already in this one. This one's cooking. Kim made it hotter, and they are cooking faster now. So let's see if it's going to come out though. Doesn't want to come out, you can, oops, that's hot. You can use your spatula and then kind of spread it out. You want to spread it out for me?
Sure.
I can get this off. There, most of it's spread out. And again, some more butter, which I think we're running out of butter. Maybe that's the problem.
So let's,
We'll just make one more. Okay?
yes, we will.
This recipe, by the way, should make 10 to 12 crepes.
And I
there
think we
go.
mentioned this earlier in regards to the filling, but also with the batter. You can make this up to 2 days in advance. Everything, you can make the whole thing up to 2 days in advance. Put it all in the refrigerator, and when you have your dinner guests or your dinner party or your family, whatever, you can just take them out, start cooking them, and
You also
serve
can
them.
freeze them. They freeze very well if you wrap them really well, and they would last for about a month in the freezer.
A month?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's great. They're already smelling terrific.
Yeah, that's for people who plan ahead.
You can already smell some of the caramelization taking place.
They're
You
cooking
can
much
smell the
faster now.
vanilla and you can smell
They're
the
not
sugar.
coming out. Okay, we'll be right back, and then we will assemble the crepes for you.
Hey there, Trailblazers. I hope you're enjoying these fine tunes on this afternoon. We're at the top of our hour, and we have more music on the way, so stay tuned.
If the character is moving too fast for their stride,
Okay, folks, welcome back. Now we are ready to assemble the blintz. Here is one of the pancakes that we made, doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to be rolling it all up. So even if it's a little misshapen, it probably won't matter at the end. So we're going to put about 2 tablespoons of the cheese mixture at one end and kind of in a little rectangular shape. And then we're going to fold it over, pat it down, and then fold in each side. There's one, and there's the other, and then we're going to roll. Roll, roll, oops, roll, and you want to have the seam on the bottom, okay? And I'll just put this, I need another plate actually, here it is. And take out that plate for me, and we'll put this on there. And let's do one more, at least. Let's find one that's not so torn up. We had a little trouble with this one. This is a beautiful one. We want one each cheese on the plate. We want to take, again, about 2 tablespoons of the cheese mixture at one end in the center. Kind of make a little rectangle. Fold it over. Pat, pat, pat. And one side, the other side, and then just roll it into a nice little pancake. Package, I should say, package. I meant to say package. Okay, and we'll do one more for you. Again, I'm going to keep the darker side on the outside. And put in my cheese. I find this offset spatula is so handy for so many things. When I'm measuring flour or sugar, whatever, it lets you even out the cup and get an exact measurement. And then today it's been handy for this. Okay, fold, fold, roll, roll, roll. The seam is on the bottom. Okay. Now the next thing we're going to do is fry them.
Right.
I'll keep rolling while you do that.
So we're going to put some butter into our heated saucepan. We don't want the butter
About 2 tablespoons, actually.
to burn because you want the butter to taste like real, fresh, wonderful butter, not like burnt butter, which changes the whole taste. So that means we got to cook quickly if our butter is hot. And then we're just going to drop each one of these to begin with face down or the
Seam down.
side. Yeah, seam side down. And our goal now is to get these to brown up more and really look rich.
And also warm up, because right now they're not warm.
Now, if you freeze these, which you can after they're done, or they cool down, one cardinal rule is no microwave. Do not heat them up in the microwave. Heat
Why
them
is
up.
that?
You can, because you will lose, you know, all bread that gets microwaved, unless you're very careful, becomes like chewing gum, in my opinion. So you want to avoid that. So by heating them
there.
up, if you want to heat them up, you can heat them up back in a fry pan, or better still, in the oven. The oven will thicken up the filling and also warm them up without destroying their texture.
That would be 10 minutes at 325 degrees.
Right. So meanwhile, these little babies are browning up. I hope they finish quickly so we can get to eat them. Meanwhile, going back to our sauce now, we simmered this for about 10 to 15 minutes until we got a consistency that is somewhat thick,
Okay.
like
roll.
that. Not like a jam thickness, but much thicker than a loose sauce. sort of in between a sauce and a compote, as I mentioned earlier.
When you fry them, you don't want them touching each other. They cook better that way, so you might have to do it in 2 or 3 batches.
Should we test and see if they're ready to be turned over?
Be my guest.
Okay, so we learned that using 2 spatulas help you to keep them together, which is the trick.
Perfect. It
Look
looks
at
great.
that. Look at that baby.
And I
Okay.
imagine the 2 spatula trick would be good for lots of other things you want to mix. That you want to turn over. Because it's always hard to do that, for me anyway.
Wow. Don't get much more beautiful looking than those.
Right. Now we're going to warm them on this side for a few minutes, and then we'll be ready to eat.
And then we'll be envious of our studio audience who are going to get to eat these in just a minute or 2. Rewarded for their patience.
I hope you found this interesting and that you found it not too difficult to do. There's a number of steps, but basically it's simple when you get all your ingredients organized beforehand, and you only need a few bowls and a spatula.
And it's pretty foolproof because you don't need these to look beautiful. They do look beautiful, but they're more rustic feeling.
Yeah,
than,
it's a rustic, old world country food.
Okay, I think
You won't find it in a French restaurant.
we're ready to,
Test those?
yeah.
Why don't I, okay.
Can you get
Get
out
some plates? I sure can.
plates
I think they're over
and some
here.
silverware?
I can do that too.
Now, I know our audience has never tasted this before, so it's a little good to get their reaction. Now, we're going to take these, we're going to plate them. Whoop. We're also going to just read a very interesting article about how your eyes help your taste buds when you eat food. And how food looks is very important to your enjoyment of the food.
You want to put this on? I'll put
So-
this on. Okay.
So at home also, we spend a lot of time plating food the way we like it to make it beautiful best we can. And we learned years ago that that's really important.
One
And
step we didn't do today, which you could do, is add some confectioner sugar before you put on the sauce, but I think they're really sweet.
And if you have any questions, please email there and we'll get right back to you. And we hope you have a fun time making these. Your family enjoys the wonderful sweet smell that's going to pervade your house, and everybody's going to be in wonderment that you made these from scratch.
And we appreciate you watching us today. Have a good week. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.